First, we access structural violence in this debate. We speak out on behalf of women we know, our sisters in arms, who are being raped in the status quo. By the time this round is over, 6 female sailors would have been raped. 71% of women at the Naval Academy reported acts of sexual violence. That's both white, black, and any other woman at the Naval Academy. 71%, the majority of which are not ever reported because their male peers refuse to act on their behalf. The absent attempt to reverse this peer pressure that creates a culture of silence and allows structural violence in the military to continue. This is the first piece of DoD Task Force evidence in the 1AC. The second piece of DoD Task Force evidence indicates that midshipmen have a personal responsibility to speak out, and this obligation must come before all else. That a culture that must be created where male midshipmen are incentivized for doing so, as we reverse the peer pressure creating silence on this issue. The ballot is your mechanism for incentivizing our AF speech. A vote asked so we can have a megaphone to use when we return to the academy on Tuesday. It allows us to say that society is beginning to recognize the problem and that other midshipmen are being incentivized to speak out. We applaud the negative speech as another instance of resisting structural violence, but it does not compete with the AF. To use debate buzzword, the two are not mutually exclusive. Both projects can go forward, but the negative advocacy is not a reason to reject the affirmative project. If you vote neg on this question, you'll say that negatives project is more important than the need for male midshipmen to reject rape for their sister sailors, which is morally repugnant, and also sends a bad signal that perpetuates a culture of silence. That's the Peterson evidence and the DoD Task Force evidence outlined above. The neg is not a reason to vote AF. Go a little bit more into that Pearson evidence. We said right up front in the 1AC that there's going to be attempts by opposition to say that either A, structural violence is inevitable, that's their root cause evidence, or B, that there's something that goes before structural violence in the military. So basically, when they're gonna
they try and like prioritize
they're prioritizing something above structural violence and thus saying, be quiet, we're not going to talk about this rape culture that's happening right now, we're going to instead try to talk about fracturing history and put something before it. And we say this is only perpetuating the culture of silence. They link right into our Pearson evidence. Until they address this, they can't win the round. Also, the entire counter advocacy can just run alongside ours. There's absolutely no reason why these are competing with each other. There's no reason why they're exclusive. Let them work their project to fracture history. Let us work our project to end structural violence and dehumanization within the military. And if we want to actually go into which one is better, we're going to go ahead and say that the AF is better because basically we have better solency. Now, as you saw in cross-examination, we kept asking him, well, how are you going to fracture history, you personally? How are you going to end, Polk's war of oppression that happened 200 years ago? How are you going to liberate anybody? They have no cards, they have no evidence talking about how it's discourse that leads to that. There's no evidence talking about how it's discourse and debates leads to that. I would direct you to our DoD task force evidence that specifically outlines, this is from the Pentagon, that it is male midshipmen standing up and saying, we have your back. We have your support. We are the ones speaking out for you. As soon as we start doing this, we can solve. Our evidence is directly tying what we are doing in this debate round to solving the problems we're talking about. Why they can outline a problem, why they can outline oppression, they have no means to directly solve for it and absolutely no evidence to that fact. Moving on to the disadvantage. Let me real quick before we get to there. On the role of the ballot claim within their counter-advocacy, first of all, we're liberating women from violence every single day. You can't imagine the fear of having somebody in your command structure potentially rape you and then you having no voice to be able to speak out and stop it. It's a terrifying feeling. We are trying to end this. So for this reason, we meet their ballot of liberation and we feel we do it better due to our better solency. And then we have a counter role of the ballot that whoever ends structural violence better is the one that should be voted for. Since we are directly ending structural violence through our affirmative discourse, we should be the one on that grounds to also get the ballot. Moving on to the disadvantage. First of all, the entire speech about us homogenizing women, this isn't from a philosopher, from a scholar, this is his opinion. I can go right back at him and say, cross-apply that evidence to them. If they're going to homogenize the entire border culture, the entire ghetto culture, if they're going to take all people of culture, anyone who's ever been oppressed by Polk's war of oppression, and homogenize them, we find that bad. So cross-apply that evidence right against them. Also, on their claims that we homogenize women, first of all, we're homogenizing women in a specific way in the fact that we're talking about women in the military who have a specific problem we're trying to get. Yeah, we're advocating for all women to be free from sexual violence, and if this is somehow a bad claim, then let's have that.
Just because we didn't delineate out each group doesn't mean that it's necessarily.
Yeah, okay, so if the problem is that we didn't specifically delineate out racial groups within women or gay and lesbian culture, first of all, we picked the specific banner of women in the military because that's the most upfront problem. But I'd like to point out that it's women of color are also included in this rape culture, that lesbian women are also included in this rape culture, that it's all subgroups of women in the military are also included in this culture. So if we can solve for women living in a rape culture, we can solve for all the different groups. There's no reason why we shouldn't, and they didn't really make a claim that we can. Also, homogenization is happening in the current status quo. Right now in the command authority, blanket sweeps all women and says all of you need to be silent, all of you need to be passive sex objects. So if you do vote negative, homogenization is going to continue, except it's in the face of a rape culture. We've already talked about the solvency claims and refer you back to the DoD task force evidence from 2005 saying it's been Shipman speaking out. I'm gonna go ahead and finish out that the National Journal piece of evidence talking about that that the Pentagon responds much like the Catholic Church, moving people around shoveling cars in debt, continuing the edge of so-called reforms. Only 14% of victims report these crimes. We should be told when the victim are deposed. When we ask about sexual histories, if they are relevant being raped. There's no sentencing guidance for military juries in the sexual assault and rape cases. This really pair gets slapped with 30 days of jail with demotion to rank, but that's business as usual. Australia, Canada, and Great Britain have removed their cases from the military chain of command. The United States Armed Forces have been a microcosm of American society, reflecting its strength and often magnifying its weaknesses. The military struggled with racism in the ranks in the 1960s and 70s, with the epidemic of drugs and drunk driving in the 1970s and 80s, with the integration of gay and lesbian service members in the 1990s and 2000s. When the service has decided enough is enough, they will have solved social issues that bedevil the civilization world. In other cases, the military has been dragged along. President Congressman received the Pentagon protests and the landmark Goldwater and Nichols reforms in 1986. Then functional service rivalries. This history suggests that the Department of Defense should indeed deal with sexual prayers on the items which really demonstrating zero tolerance to sexual prayers and betraying the military's own values. Others should be prepared to stand down and let others lead the way. This was the National Journal 2012 talking about how the ballot is valuable for 2 reasons. Basically what this is saying is that the society functions as our military functions as a microcosm of the society as a whole. So this is the spillover, where if we can start talking about this in greater society, this will go back to the military and fix it. And then also, once the results start happening in the military, once this rape culture is ended, this can spill over and be a big portion of the liberation for women all over America, all over the world. On the root cause issue, once again, we're just going to go with that our evidence is more specific. He can give you the opinion that the root cause is the fact that men and women live alongside each other and that violence is inevitable. Once again, refer back to the Pearson evidence. By saying that rape culture is inevitable, you're playing into the fact that you're trying to silence women. You're saying it's inevitable, continue to be raped. We don't want to fix this. We don't even want to talk about it. So this plays back into the Pearson evidence on this root cause claims. We have the evidence. They don't on this. And basically what it comes down to in this case is that their counter-advocacy is not mutually exclusive. We have better roles on the ballot. We are both better liberating and the only team in this round ending structural violence. The actual case-specific cards themselves are all conceded coming out of 1 and C. They concede the fact that women have been historically treated poorly by the military. They concede that 71% of the women.
Those are issues that we don't solve for just like psychological violence.
Well, that's
just talk about how we create better equality, which is currently psychological violence comes from them being second-class citizens.
Yeah. So once again, that's what I was talking about with the culture being more, the evidence being more specific. That the root cause is the fact that they're treated like second-class citizens. That nobody had my back when I said I was raped. That the command structure was ignoring me. This is the root cause of all this.
And it's
the
because they're
psychological.
being a second-class citizens when they try and become equal. That's why we then try and push them back down.
Yeah,
so if we create equality, there's no attempt to push them back down.
If we create equality, there's no attempt to put them back down. This is what's going to fix this. Like I said, the entire case is completely conceded. So if you're going to be weighing the case versus their counter-advocacy, we're going to go ahead and say that we have the better roles of the ballot and better solvency on these issues, as we're the only ones solving for structural violence. That's it.
Okay, I'm assuming he made a term, like you're talking about, we're not mutually exclusive, right? So,
I mean, functionally, yeah.
okay, what is like
one firm, right?
Yeah. Yes. What is like the perm text?
Perm text. I mean, I'd say we can
Is it like perm do both?
I mean, functionally, yeah. Like
Okay.
we can both investigate like these.
Gotcha. Fair.
Yeah.
We're having a discussion of like burning down the state. How do you solve for that while working within the ranks of the Navy?
No, I don't think you necessarily get solvency simply by burning down the state. Like, I think.
No, I'm asking how does the perm
I
function?
think you're
Yeah, exactly.
fighting
Like,
this.
I don't think you need to burn down the state to be able to solve for your impacts. Like, it comes.
So how can you perm? How can you do both
We're
and
saying,
then
you're,
just
we're
say
saying you're not doing that also in
Like,
other claims
like
letters.
obviously
Like
to
the frac-
still do
what
our,
you're
like
talking
to
about.
still do the plan, yes. Like, and I guess post round, like we would say that the military still exists, but you can also like investigate these instances of, you know, problems within history, Polk's War, and you don't have to get rid of the state. Like you can
so
reform.
the state is good, and that's what you're saying.
We're not
I
saying,
mean-
we're
I
specifically
mean,
outlining
yeah, I'm
problems in the
saying
state.
that you do not need to
That's my
dissolve
problem. That's what I'm
dissolve
trying
the
to
state.
fix.
Yeah, you don't need to dissolve the state to be able to
So
dissolve.
how does the perm function?
Huh?
You're not-
We
you're not
we can
dissolving
both
the
have
state. You're
an
in a
investigation of these instances of history in which it led to oppression and like fractured by like through this historical investigation while simultaneously acting as members of the state to solve for structural violence
Okay.
within the military
And
structure.
that's what I have a problem with as well. Like, you keep asserting that you directly end structural violence. You're solving for structural violence. What part, like, what are you doing here? Like, how are you solving structural violence? Why is the role of ballot, like, key to solve structural violence?
So yeah, so like I'll like lay this out. So women in the military feel that they are being oppressed. One, through sexual assault, but two, because like men will not like their brothers in arms will not recognize that this violence exists.
Why is the ballot key for that?
Huh?
Why is the ballot key? Like,
Because then he
Well,
reinforces the fact that he recognizes that this is an issue, which
Right.
then especially
does that stop someone like
Huh?
from causing structural violence to women like this paper, this ballot? Are you talking about?
And like us as I think the second piece of task force evidence is specifically good on this. Like it talks about how midshipmen need to act to end sexual harassment, and that can solve for sexual assault. Like it's the fact that midshipmen don't like want to act. These
Okay.
peer pressure and the relation between
Last
sailors.
question. What is ghetto culture, and when have we discussed anything about ghetto culture?
Okay, let's like to
I
go
mean,
back to your
Like
case.
define ghetto culture. Like I'm not sure what
I mean, I
ghetto
No,
say
I'm
culture
saying
is.
that's what I'm saying. I don't think we should just homogenize that at all. You're the
No,
one
like
that's
what
making
is
blanket.
ghetto culture?
What is ghetto culture?
That's
Like-
what I have. That's what I have an objection with. Is